because this was a first listen for me. We're going to have you run the numbers in a second, Matt, but I guess nominally this is both Rufus, the group, and Chaka Khan. I think this is a joint collab here because Chaka Khan was in Rufus, but she was sort of breaking away from Rufus. And so it's both of them are credited on this one, and the album name is Ask Rufus. So there's a lot of stuff going on here with nomenclature and stuff like that. And I think I have the first take on this, and I'll try to sprinkle in a little bit of what I learned post listen as well for context. But Matt, feel free to fill us in.
Yeah, so just so you know that they do separate this on Best Ever Albums. So this is Rufus and Chaka Khan.
And on Spotify they do that too.
Yeah, and they actually have 4 albums like under that name. And then there's Chaka Khan, and then there's Rufus. So yes, this is its own separate thing. But Ask Rufus comes in at number 3,403 of all of the 1970s, excuse me, on Best Ever Albums. Number 306 in the year 1977. Number 29,036 of all time. Yeah, and then on Rolling Stone's list, it came in at a hot 499. So just making Rolling Stone's list, yeah.
And that's how it got into our list right here, because it just made up there. So, I mean, you gotta like an album with both the song Everlasting Love, which I think has always existed in the ether for me, but I think if you had said to me, who sings Everlasting Love, depending on how I would have heard, I would have thought it was like Diana Ross or Dionne Warwick, or I didn't quite know who it was.
I would have said Howard Jones if somebody would have just asked me Everlasting Love. Yeah.
Has it been covered a lot? I didn't recognize the song.
No, it's a pretty it's a
Howard
a
Jones
song
has another Everlasting Love song that was
not in any way derivative of this, Josh. So
gotcha.
Matt just threw you a red herring there.
I'm keeping you on your toes, Josh.
But Everlasting Love is a song that especially of a certain era you would hear, when you were doing it. So I was like, okay, now I finally have the context of who sings Everlasting Love. And then you also have to love the one instrumental interlude being called Slow Screw Against the Wall, which also I think is right up there in the top 5 titles of songs that we had. I think the other best song title we had was another funk album, and I was trying to remember the highly sexually charged other song we had, and I think we definitely the Marvin Gaye album, Let's Get It On, had some that were hilariously.
He had a couple, there was
explicit that way too. But this is the first one.
Wasn't there something about boning? I want to bone you or something.
I just love boning you or something that.
Yeah,
I gotta look.
No, we sure do like to ball.
Sure do like to ball.
You sure do like to ball.
So it goes back into that thing. And to me, funk music should have that level of overt sexuality because it is carnal, you know what I mean? Funk, when it's done a certain way, sounds like a certain type of sex, right? So anyway, those two things came up, but I like this album. I really did. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, because Chaka Khan exists kind of in that area also, I think, for a lot of people, where her name is in some ways more famous than her music is for certain people.
It sure is.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. And so I was like, as I was listening to this, I said, I can guarantee for Matt that's going to be the case.
Chaka Khan? What is that from either? What is that? I forget. I don't even know where that's from. I just know the inflection.
I remember someone would say Chaka Khan, Chaka. Yeah, I can't remember.
But it was on a rap album or something, wasn't it? Wasn't it on some early 80s?
I don't know, but I don't want to fall into early meme, stuff like that along the way. I want to talk about the fact that this is the first R&B/funk hybrid album we've done, and how nice it is to have some of these R&B and funk albums kind of intrude into what we're listening to.
Is this really the first? What do you mean by it? Because I would assume
this is
like Isaac Hayes was a little bit of both, wasn't he?
To me, Isaac Hayes was a soul meets funk. Right? It's a little bit of what that is. Whereas to me, R&B is a different sound than soul is a different sound.
I thought this was an R&B
funk.
album.
I heard soul on this, but maybe I don't know the differences.
No. Let me go backwards because you're getting. I said this is where R&B meets, to me, funk is what this is. And Matt said, I thought this. I said, no. Isaac Hayes is soul, which to me is different than R&B, right? It has a soul has a Teddy Pendergrass, right, is more soul than R&B. Like, you could classify him as one thing, but it's a way of singing, right? Is what soul is. It's how you sing, right? And maybe, Matt, this goes back to like when we were talking about those 60s singers, and you're like, stuff. And Matt and Josh and I were like, are you kidding me? Like, there's like soul and R&B and standards and like how you hear it. Like, this is, to me, in the disco era, this is like funk and R&B with a little bit of disco built into it. So it's very much of its time. Like, this is what 1977 sounded like, in club music if you were going for the disco, right? But like, you didn't want just the disco. So like, this could easily fold its way in, right? Like, it sort of serves the same niche that like Diana Ross was doing, but she wasn't really going into the funk necessarily. It was more R&B, the stuff like that. But I like this. There was as you'd expect in funk, there were funky bass lines along the way. I loved the assortment of background vocalists. I thought was really cool, and I thought they always played really well off of Chaka Khan's voice. I don't know if there was like a standout song for me necessarily. It kind of was more like a body of work for me than it was any individual. It was a very hard album to pick like the 2 songs for our playlists on because of that. But there also, because of that, there wasn't any song that like dipped for me in terms of quality of song either. So, and it's a very quick listen, right? It kind of, I think it's 37 minutes, right? It didn't seem that long as I was listening to it. And, the other thing I'll mention is that, Chaka Khan has a lot of range, not necessarily the scale range, but what she can sound like range, right? She can go sexy low, she can go really high, she can, sing like a pop singer, she can sing like a soul singer, she's got like a lot of different personas in terms of her voice. So I can add more, but I'm curious to hear what Josh says, because I know his inclinations, and I'm curious to hear what Matt says, because I kind of know what his take is on different stuff, and I'm curious to see if this evolution of it resonates or less resonates with both you guys. So Matt, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think I probably need a little education on differences between soul and R&B, because I would say both of those terms came up to me in my head when I listened to this, as well as funk. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of funk. I think I can get down with the funk, which is certainly on this. But I was hearing, I was hearing some what I would have considered as being soul, but maybe there are more distinct differences that I'm just not aware of. But I mean,
you want to hear a one
overlap too.
You want to hear a one sentence kind of long sentence description of it, though?
Oh, yes, here you go. One long sentence. Go.
Soul music is a combination of R&B and gospel music. While soul has a lot in common with R&B, its differences include its use of gospel music devices, its greater emphasis on vocalists, and its merging of religious and secular themes.
Okay. I don't know about the religious and secular. Yeah, I don't know about the religious theme, but I don't know.
Bill Withers is soul, because when you listen to him, right, he could talk about everyday stuff, but there's also sort of an undergirding spirituality to it.
Okay.
Whereas when you listen, you get what I'm saying? Maybe you just have to hear it, but yeah, okay.
And maybe, I don't know, and I've only heard this once, and it was several days ago, so I'm trying to remember, like, if I've heard that or if not. But anyway, overall, I did like this album. I think, actually, John, I could probably point to 2 songs that were definitely my favorite, and they were the last 2. I thought the last 2 songs were awesome. Yeah, I thought The Better Days was kind of like, it got that funk beginning, which a lot of these songs had, and early on, a lot of my, the earliest, when I take my notes, one of the comments I make for a lot of these songs is I'm bobbing my head right away. They get a groove going, and it's not hard to pick up on it. So it's very catchy in that regard. There was a cool guitar part in Better Days, and there was also some sort of yelping type instrumentation that reminded me of Herbie Hancock. Remember Herbie Hancock and Watermelon Man? And he had like and I was like, I don't know if that's an instrument or if that's just like a vocalization that somebody's doing, but it sounds very similar, and it's cool, and it works well for both of these songs. So, and then the Egyptian song, which is the last track, is a really dramatic piano, song with a lot of orchestration in the beginning, and it's dramatic. It's got timpani, right, very heavy kind of timpani, and I just thought that those 2 songs really capped the album off very well. But yeah, I did like it. I would probably like to listen to this again. I think that slow screw against the wall. I was expecting a little bit more of a song that seems like you would actually want to screw to. That seems like that seemed like a classical piece. There's like cello,
Yeah.
There's like an orchestra in there, like not just like a '70s orchestration, because that is certainly peppered throughout this album. A lot of that '70s orchestra. This sounds like like a classical, like the Philharmonic is playing, and that's the name of the song that they give. Which doesn't sound right at all.
Can I point out that slow screw is oxymoronic, by the way, because like screwing is one thing that's different than what you would imagine slow to be, and then against the wall is another different type of thing. So it's like a lot of, you know what I mean? It's kind of and none of them sound like what the song sounds like, by the way.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was very interesting.
No,
there's these three different ways to do it, and none of them sound like the song. Like
right, and and it's easy to see that that's done on purpose, right? That's like, so it was just, I'm just saying, when I saw that title, it's like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And then I was like, what? So, but yeah, I liked it. I wouldn't say that I loved it. I think, again, that, this is not something that I typically listen to. So, I find myself with these records, if it's a more familiar territory, it's an easier thing for me to get into more immediately. But I did like this. It's got a lot of great beats. I really do like her voice. She really hits some of those high notes very well. She's got a lot of passion behind it, and definitely it's got a little bit of that '70s orchestration. So it certainly sounds of its time, which I don't know. Maybe depending on my mood, maybe that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think that certainly with the stuff that we've covered in the '60s and now the '70s, I am much more open to that sound than I was a year and a half ago. So I think that's I think the exposure is certainly expanding my palette, if you will. So I'm more okay with that than maybe I used to be. So but yeah, like the funk. It's thumbs up. It's not over the moon or going nuts over it, but it was a nice listen for something that I had no idea what I was. I mean, I had some idea what I was going to get, but I didn't know any of these songs, and really not familiar with anything that Chaka Khan, or I didn't even know Rufus was a band. So I had zero knowledge about that before.
I am a little shocked that you didn't know "Everlasting Love," because that song is in some ways omnipresent. Yeah,
I didn't know either.
And I noticed that it's by far the most listened to song on Spotify. So I'll look at that. I'll look at the numbers and be like, okay, if I'm going to know a song, it's going to be this one. And that one came up, and I was like, nope, don't know it. So
just that cascadey sound at the beginning is always what I think.
It's good, and it makes sense. I get why, and I also get why that song is the one that most people listen to. It was good. Yep.
I was lukewarm on this album. It really didn't grab me at all throughout the listen. There were things I liked about it. Like you guys said, I really liked the funk aspects of it when that came in, but it always seemed like it went away from that, or there wasn't enough of it for me. Same thing with kind of the dance disco beats that I heard. It felt like, again, like that would appear in the beginning of the song and then go away. It felt too ballady, slow song to me throughout the entire album. I really wanted more of the funk and more of like the dance beat, and so it kind of always like teased that for me, and then kind of disappointed me by going in a different direction. I could tell that Rufus the band is talented. I could hear like the musicianship. I felt like they were probably strong session musicians, or something akin to that kind of sound. And I really liked Chaka Khan's voice, but there was nothing in this that grabbed me. I was surprised there wasn't like a strong single, like you guys said. Again, I didn't hear that. I hadn't heard the Everlasting Love song, or at least didn't remember it. And then there was just kind of too many lulls in the album as a whole for me. Like for every funky opening, like in the opening track at midnight, or like the really cool part in Better Days, which is probably the standout track for me, there was too many other things like that, kind of the whole middle of the album, that really didn't speak to me or grab me in the way that those other things did. The synth I thought there was synth in that instrumental, but maybe I was hearing it wrong.
I think you're right. At the end there was. Yeah. Early on, it was very like classical, like a cello solo was in there, and then at the end, like the last 30-40 seconds or whatever, they threw the synth in. So
and that just kind of felt out of place too in the album, or maybe just unwelcome. I didn't really feel that song either. So even though I was expecting something like Earth Song, which almost was like a jam band R&B song, it didn't go to the heights that I wanted it to. So maybe this album is on me, but I was really looking for maybe Chaka Khan to like wow me or dominate me in the way that some of the other female artists that we've
slow screw you against the wall.
yeah.
No, Josh really wanted a fast screw against the wall.
Yeah. So and that didn't happen. Even something compared to, I'm trying to think of some of the other R&B that I liked a lot more.
Earth, Wind, and Fire is of this era.
Yeah.
I don't know how you felt about them compared to
this.
But
I like
they
them
would be
more
contemporaries.
because I like that. Whatever they said, it was like Egyptian mysticism or whatever they defined themselves at. That was just, and definitely like the Isley Brothers, which was a real high for me. I just really like that sort of
the funk
R&B
around this time was like Parliament.
Yeah. Again, Parliament I like a lot more than this too.
So it's the ballads. It's more the ballads that you're.
Yeah. There wasn't.
Not
I
feeling.
thought there'd be way more like dance tracks or.
But you don't hate ballads in like 90s R&B, from what I know of you, right?
I don't know. We'll have to
Okay.
hear.
It's also one listen. Like that's the thing
Yeah.
that I'm finding about this, because sometimes even though I would not say this is a hard listen, like or like a complicated listen, like Lou Reed's Berlin is a good example. Like that's an album I listened. I was like, there's no way I can have a great take on one listen.
Any krautrock,
it's like you got to delve into it more than that. But this is a different one because I kind of agree a little bit, Josh. Like I did like it. Like a lot of my notes are fairly positive, but I also remember walking away from it going, I really don't know exactly if I really got the album, right? Because it just there was an eclectic mix of kind of the tempos and whatnot. So it's hard for me to say, I really liked it, or it was just okay. So it's not so much it was a complicated listen, but I did feel like I don't know if I was expecting something different, or if it just did enough different things that kept me not really exactly sure. But I could see this as being something maybe a couple more listens I would get more into it. But yeah. So I understand that.
Well, and I want to clean one stack real quick because I knew one part of this, but not others. Rufus are definitely not session musicians. They're a really successful funk band. They had 10 top 40 pop hits, 5 number one R&B singles, and 4 consecutive number one R&B albums.
Wow. Okay.
They also recorded a little Stevie Wonder track, and I did know this, called Tell Me Something Good, which I'm sure you probably
funky.
Yep. And
that
so
is funky.
You would probably know them from that, right?
Yeah.
And do you know the song Ain't Nobody either?
Yeah.
You may know it from as a sample, was it who was it who sampled Ain't Nobody, like in the
Trick Daddy?
Was it Jay-Z maybe? Early Jay-Z?
Oh yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
But I know it from the original back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, because the Jay-Z song's called Ain't No N-Word, like the one I got.
Yep.
And I think what's her face is on it, Foxy Brown or Amory or something like that.
It's like real early Jay-Z.
Yeah. First album, I think.
I can remember seeing. Anyway, I don't want to get into that here. We'll talk about Jay-Z plenty down the road. But yeah, so you can see those are 2 songs, and the one that Rufus does, Chaka Khan's in the front of it. And it's like, ain't nobody does me better. It's like a different.
Oh, I know
version.
that. Yeah,
makes me happy. Yeah, that's Rufus too with Chaka Khan.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's good. Okay.
So there's a little bit more of their stuff.
Man, I wish
throughout
one of
the
those
70s.
songs were on this. I could have
It is a different album, and I can see why it leaves you flat compared to that stuff. But I'm just going to advocate a little bit for Rufus. That they're a pretty well regarded band in the 70s in the funk genre, especially, and they do intersect with R&B too. And like I said, this is really the first where we have that merging of 2 genres. Yeah.
Interesting. Matt? Do you have the 499 entry up? Do you have that? I'm curious as to why they put that in, since it's so like far away in best ever albums.
So it says Chicago funk group Rufus gave their heavy guitar sound room to breathe on their 5th LP, especially Chaka Khan, who glides through the head-nodding everlasting love and twisty-turny better days. The results forecast the loose, lithe arrangements of neo soul.
Okay.
Oh, Soul. I was right.
Well,
Neo Soul, John.
Neo Soul is different than what I call soul.
Well, I read Soul, and I did not read R&B, so maybe I was onto something.
Maybe there was too much room to breathe for me.
And with that, that's a great place to stop right there. So Josh was holding his breath. I probably liked it more than maybe the other two, and
I liked it more than Josh. I would go in the order. John liked it the most, then me, then Josh. Josh hated it. Josh thinks Chaka Khan should Chaka go away.
He can answer the comments then that come from that. No,
that's right. Yell at Josh.
All jokes aside, if you only know Chaka Khan by name or, without anything, any awareness of her music, give this one a shot, and maybe even some of the earlier Rufus stuff. So.